There we go.
Welcome back, everybody, to the Visionary Flow podcast. I'm your host, Alex Damas.
I'm your co-host, Kevin Thomas.
Producer Sophie couldn't be here because college. But we have a special guest in the studio today. Kyra Bufi is here. She is a senior biomedical sciences major and a pharmacy technician and in school. So, like, you should fuck with her. Like, that's pretty dope. But I think for most of the listeners, and for myself included, I have no clue what the fuck a biomedical sciences major is. So please explain that to us.
All right. Well, actually, biomedical sciences is a major that just came out. They just released it, made it official like a week ago, and I decided to change.
About a week ago?
Yeah, about a week ago. yeah.
So
I
what
just
were you
changed.
before that?
Yeah.
I was natural sciences. So actually, they're essentially the same thing. They're just coming out the biomedical sciences because it sounds better. I mean, for all the pre-med students who come in as natural sciences, you know, it sounds like you do geology or something, you know?
But
it doesn't sound...
like, is it only because it sounds better, or?
It's partially that. It's also got some better, like, higher level classes in there, like, you know, medicinal chem and, like, I think the other one, I can't remember it right now. But, microbiology, that's right.
So did you come in as pre-med? Because I know you and I were talking before and you said you were applying to med school.
Yes.
So was this always a dream of yours?
Oh, yeah. I was really keen on going to medical school, like even throughout high school. I did all the nerdy stuff. Like I took so many bio classes in high school. I was in Science Olympiad. It was...
Science Olympiad?
Yeah,
like,
I was in
Science
Olympiad.
Quiz Bowl.
Yeah, essentially. We took like biology tests. Yeah, no, it was really fun. They're cool events. There were like engineering events too that I got to do. So it was really like a whole just science extravaganza we got to go to every month. So
that's awesome. Yeah. See, I'm really excited when other people took part in really nerdy quiz bowls, because in high school I did Kertamen, which is like Latin quiz bowl.
Oh wow.
So yeah, we won state.
Why? Why though?
Why?
Yeah.
I was bored and wanted to do it. I was intrigued by it. I loved Latin history and literature and stuff. Yeah. In high school I took Latin and Greek. So
I don't understand what Latin is.
Latin? It was the language of the Romans.
Yeah, and that's what derives that's what all other languages are derived from.
Not all other ones, but most of Europe,
most of them,
except for kind of the Germanic areas, even though Caesar, messed that up. But anyway,
that's crazy.
Yeah, and we won state both times that I took part in it.
Wow.
We're good.
So I never even offered Latin and German. Or Greek.
What?
Got to take.
So wait, Kyra, where are you from?
So I'm from Dayton.
Okay.
I went to Archbishop Alter High School. Go Knights.
I would say shout out to Dayton, but like it's Dayton.
Yeah.
No comment on Dayton.
Yeah. I mean, it's not on Dayton in general, but I absolutely loved my high school. It was a blast going there.
So, did you do the Science Quiz Bowl like all 4 years?
Yes. I was actually one of the only people to do it all 4 years, like me and a couple other friends. So, yeah.
So this was something that you've wanted to like do medical stuff since you were like real young.
Yeah.
When did
or
you
at least science in general, yeah.
What kicked that off in your history?
Well, my parents are in healthcare careers. My mom is a physical therapist and a pharmacist. My dad is a nurse and an artist, but he has his bachelor's in sculpture. So I mean, just like creativity and healthcare all in general were just like sort of melded in my family, and I see them as two indivisible things, really.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
You say that so much, like listening back through
I say that's awesome,
and it's so funny. It's so
I feel like I can't say it.
You have a characterized moment of interest.
You have to. That is you, Kevin. That's awesome.
But no, I'm like super intrigued now because you said that creativity and science are indivisible in your mind. So generally when I think of creativity, I think of it as kind of separate from science. I think of curiosity as heavily in science.
Oh yeah.
But creativity not so much, because you have this scientific method.
Mm-hmm.
So how does that work together in like with your history?
Yeah. Well, I mean, I just see it as like if you don't have a creative mindset, like you can't expand those boundaries. I mean, you have to be thinking outside the box in order to make these new discoveries. You have to be thinking of things that someone else might not necessarily be thinking of, or you need to look at the big picture and see where all the dots connect. So I think that involves a big creative aspect in science. And I don't know. I don't get that a lot from a lot of professors sometimes, but whenever you show that you're trying to be creative, they actually really appreciate that. So it's
weird question, like very like philosophical.
Oh, good.
Like, what do you believe that box is? You say think outside the box. So what is the box? How do you think outside of it? Is it possible to expand the box?
That's a good question. Well, I think the box, and this is speaking from philosophy. I mean, Kevin,
Yeah.
I'm my philosophy.
Kevin's in love with this.
Yeah.
No, Kyra and I are both philosophy.
Yeah.
Well, Kyra's
I'm a
a
philosophy minor, so yeah,
but
yeah,
we've
it's
talked about
Yeah,
it a
she's
lot.
also a minor. in philosophy.
Philosophy and psychology, yeah.
And
yeah, I love those
psychology.
things. Yeah. But
Get
I'd
on
say
that
that the
level.
box is definitely quoting directly from probably Dr. Quinn, modern natural science. And but that box it can be kind of restraining. I mean, when you have people all the time talk about how religion and science can't mix. But if you really think about it, some people, I would argue that possibly they could. That's a pretty touchy subject,
Yeah.
but
Historically they were mixed together
yeah.
quite closely.
Oh,
Yeah.
for centuries, yeah. They were really mixed together. Ancient Egypt, ancient Greece, they mixed their religion and their science. And, it wasn't necessarily that it led them to the wrong discoveries. It's just that they saw different qualities in those things.
Yeah.
So,
But even outside that, the person who created the Big Bang Theory was a Jesuit priest.
yes, exactly.
And yeah,
Really?
yeah.
Please
So
explain.
he was a Jesuit priest. He was an astronomer, and he was looking at it, and it's heavily intertwined with his own religious beliefs. With the Big Bang going back to the unmoved mover theory, where
First,
or the clockmaker, where it's the unmoved mover theory is that there is some everything has to be pushed into motion in some way, and so there must have been something before the universe exists that wasn't able to be moved but moved the first thing. And so that's what is theorized as God.
Okay.
And so the Big Bang Theory is essentially the same thing. The Big Bang was God touching into creation.
That's
and-
interesting.
Yeah, so
that's really interesting. But my only challenge to that would be, what if there are just infinite forces that are causing another one to move,
there has to be an origin to that.
but it's infinite. So so everything always has an origin because
It's
there's always
interesting.
something that's pushing.
And
it
there's
keeps
an
going.
infinity. If we can even comprehend infinity, there has to be something in the world that's finite. It's really interesting, but
But
opposite.
it's also I forget the name of the exact problem it is, but it's about a hotel, and there's infinite rooms. So if somebody new comes in, and all the rooms are filled up, but there's infinite number of rooms, you can just move everybody into another room because there's an infinite number,
oh, wow.
and then that next person can now occupy the first room.
But we
Because it's
have a
infinite.
theory for how old the universe is.
Yeah.
And so therefore, because we're able to guess that
Is that
Yes,
limited, though?
yes, no,
is
you're
that
right.
limited by modern natural science?
So,
Our
I mean-
comprehension.
there is the rubber band theory. Do you guys know what that is?
I think I've heard of this.
I've heard of it. Just
So the rubber band theory is that the universe is like a rubber band. It's you can pull it together, and then once it goes to its limit, it smacks back to the beginning. So it's that the universe has been constantly expanding and then smacking back to the origin and then going again. So we have just been in this
multiple Big
universe for
Bangs.
13.6 billion years,
Dimensional.
and
So you're
then
saying
before that there was
line
another
of
one.
fiery.
Eventually, once it reaches its
Explosion.
limit, it's going to collapse in on itself and then
pretty
expand
tight.
again. Yeah, so that's
The worst ways to
generally
go.
one of these theories about it,
Yeah.
which allows for something like you're saying, an infinite growth and ungrowth, as opposed to the general theory, which is
They
either a
say
multiverse
also,
theory or whatever.
Isn't the universe it's boundless and expanding or something
Yeah.
like that, which is really kind of mind-boggling to me. I can't really imagine something edgeless expanding.
Yeah, well, I mean, God, I feel like I'm just talking about philosophical theories. There's
It's good.
There's another simulation theory, which is that the world we're living in is a simulation in the same way that if you create start a Minecraft game, the world of Minecraft is infinite and boundless and ever expanding, and it just keeps going as far as you go in it. And so the theory for this simulation idea is that because we're able to find universal constants, we know what gravity is, we're pretty sure.
Oh, yeah.
Because we have these constants, therefore you could
Like
just
the
plug them
algorithms.
into a computer and then create something that's similar to that.
It's like
So there's no
Matrix.
proof. Yeah, exactly. So there's no
Yeah.
proof that we aren't living in a simulation that began 13.6 billion years ago in our understanding of time.
In our dimension.
So science.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah,
this
science
stuff
and
is heavily
philosophy,
tied into science.
Yeah.
So is that kind of why you became a philosophy minor?
Oh,
was
yeah.
to help yourself with these kinds of thoughts?
Yeah, especially. I mean, there are just some questions that science also doesn't really ask very much, and that's usually like the ultimate why. I mean, the ultimate why is something that we deal with a lot in metaphysics. I mean, that's why that was one of my favorite, actually, if not the favorite, of all the philosophy classes I've taken. But I like that it attacks those questions and it really confronts them, and like science, it's dealing with more of like the very concrete physical world, which it's plenty busy with that, but like, don't get me wrong, but I like also coming around from the other side and saying like, well, ultimately, like, why are all these things happening? Like, what caused all of this?
Yeah.
Like, or what's the ultimate like meaning behind all the things that are happening? Like, so I like looking at all of
You know,
this.
it's crazy. You think about a normal person in their day-to-day life, they don't really look at that question and try to come up with an answer for it.
Yeah.
And really, a lot of times what separates great minds and peasant minds, so to speak,
Peasant minds.
is that willingness to sort of explore the whys and the hows, instead of just being like, well, this is it. Being like, well, why is that it?
Yeah.
How did that come to be?
Does this have to be it?
Yeah. Could there be
So-
more?
Mhm.
So this leads me into a question, because you want to be a doctor.
Okay.
You've applied to medical school. What kind of a doctor do you want to be? Do you want to just be like your regular physician, or do you want to be one of these like cutting edge exploratory doctors doing research into fields that might help advance us?
Human experimentation.
Oh,
Yeah.
fun.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
there we go. Let's talk about ethics.
Robot arms.
Yeah, prosthetics.
I could fuck with a robot arm.
I know, right?
Like, that'd be pretty tight.
That was actually an event in Science Olympiad, robot arm. But anyway.
Have you seen One Punch Man?
Yes, I love it.
Yeah, you know the
Oh,
character.
Gatos.
God.
Yeah.
That's
Let's
why.
talk about
That's
it.
why.
Okay.
But
Yes, wait, hang on. First, Robot Arm Science Olympiad.
Yeah,
Yes.
there was a robot arm event, I believe. I hope. I'm probably going to make my best friend listen to this podcast. So she's probably going to correct me if I got the name wrong. But I'm pretty sure we had like an event where they had to actually build like a robot arm that could do things. Like you would construct it prior to the event and bring it, and they would be like, pick up this egg as gently as you can, and it would like pick up stuff and perform all sorts of things.
That is so much cooler
Remote
than Latin
That's-
Quiz Bowl.
I'm telling you, yeah, Science Olympiad was the bomb. We had like a
That's just
vehicle that could be
pretty
run by a mousetrap. Like it was a
What?
mousetrap vehicle. Yeah.
What is it?
I can even show you
Okay.
this on Instagram sometime. Like my
I
high school posts
want to
and
see
stuff.
that after this. But so go back to the question. What kind of doctor do you want to be?
Honestly, you know, as great as it would be, as much as I appreciate all like being on the forefront of science and technology and looking at all those cutting edge things and starting to explore the ethics of these new discoveries, I like having a bit of a quieter life than that, especially with recent events of getting engaged and everything. I would like to, you know, just kind of have a nice, happy life and, you know, enjoy my family and everything and do enough for them, because, you know, ultimate goal is just supporting my family, which is kind of cliche, but I enjoy science so much that I would be willing to make that my career. And that being said, I would like to be more of like a family physician or like a pediatrician, especially is what I've been thinking about lately. I love working with kids. They're so adorable, and kids are very bright. They're very, very smart. People don't give them enough
But they're
credit.
also evil as fuck.
Yeah, they don't really
Not
have the moral
necessarily.
compass. They don't have the moral compass
Yeah.
though.
Like-
That's true, but they
like,
also
honestly,
have some kind of natural. They have some
I
natural
fuck with kids for one. Wait, that sounded really weird. Anyway, yeah, that sounded really weird. I'm gonna take that part out. But no, I think kids are pretty dope for the fact that they're just really honest. Like,
Yes.
like I respect honesty,
Mhm.
and I understand that kids are honest mainly because they don't really have a moral guide
They don't have
or
that
like
filter.
a filter.
Yeah.
But it's honesty nonetheless. I can appreciate that.
So I want to ask how you want to meld this like never-ending curiosity and creativity
Oh,
into
wait a second.
being a
You said
pediatrician.
that you got engaged.
Yes,
I-
yes.
like,
Oh, now we're bringing it up.
Well, yeah, well, she said it, so.
Yeah. But Kyra got engaged
Yes.
about a month ago.
About a month
half.
ago.
month and a half or something. Like
That's
that,
awesome.
August, yeah.
Congratulations.
Yeah,
Yeah,
thank you.
that's pretty
Thank you
dope.
very much. Yeah,
It's
it's very exciting.
sort of a question, but how old are you?
I'm 22.
22.
Just turned 22.
Just turned 22,
Yep. So,
engaged.
Yeah. He's gonna be 22 also in December. So we were in high school together.
That's like high school sweetheart.
Yeah. We were in an anatomy class together. We met in our anatomy
Oh,
class.
that's adorable.
Anatomy.
Well,
Anatomy.
we dissected a cat together.
Oh,
cat.
isn't that's
All
the
right,
greatest
yeah.
first date? So the best first date. Just know, Kevin, when you get with a girl, dissect the
There's
cat
no
with her.
dissected cat
No.
there. It's not good.
Dissect-
Last year, I dated a girl, and she was an OT major, and every time they dissected cats, she would try to show me pictures, and I'm a very squeamish guy,
Oh.
so I would just be like, no, I don't want to see this, and it's,
So like
yeah, it
you
really
couldn't
grossed me.
watch like Dawn of the Dead, Shaun of
No.
the Dead type movie.
No, I'm very squeamish.
No.
Yeah, people.
No, because in Shaun of the Dead there's a scene of like a dude. And never mind.
Yeah, I don't.
I'll just,
We're not
yeah.
gonna-
I was like,
But
let's leave that out.
how are you going to remedy being a pediatrician or a family doctor with your kind of ceaseless curiosity and creativity? Because it feels like there's not much like creativity that can be done in that
connection
field.
Well, I mean, ultimately, I just really value making those connections with my patients. I think the most fulfilling thing for me, beyond anything else, is just building relationships with my patients. And I want to be with them in the long term. I want to be with them every step of the way.
Mhm.
I want to help them through those difficulties and, recommend them to the right people and all the right things. And so I think that's really kind of what I value the most above like my curiosity and everything. Like I would sacrifice my curiosity and everything for just having good relationships with people, making those connections.
That's some dope shit. And,
Yeah.
and actually, I want to say this because some of you guys might be listening and be like, "Oh, well, she said that she just wants to be a pediatrician. That's like,
That's alright.
that's pretty cool." But what you guys have to understand is this: it's not so much when we say talking to college students that are doing big things. It's not so much that they are the physical.
revolutionaries.
No, it's not so much that the physical manifestation of that. It's not so much that it has to be a physical manifestation, but just listen to what this girl is saying. Like really pay attention, because she is dropping some wisdom that for someone who's 22 years old. I mean, I'm 19 and I'm just sitting there. I'm like,
Oh.
like,
Oh, thank
and
you.
honestly, the way that you speak reminds me of my aunt, because she's a professor in New York at New York
Oh, wow.
City College.
Oh, she's
Awesome.
a
With the grad program. She's I think she's physics and
Oh, wow.
something else.
Mm.
She has her PhD.
All right.
She
That's
is.
incredible.
She's in the biz. But like, you reminded me a lot of her, just in the way that you talk.
And also something else to keep in note is, Alex, do you remember your first pediatrician's name?
My first one.
Yeah.
Yeah. Dr. Aragonis.
Kyra, do you?
Yeah, Dr. Cardone.
Yeah, mine was Dr. Birmingham. She sucks.
Oh,
Well, she like yelled at me when I was 16 for smoking weed and was like, "You're gonna get lung cancer. You're gonna die." And I was like,
yeah.
"Fuck you, Birmingham."
I think as a pediatrician, that was
She
her
does have to
moral
tell you
obligation.
Yeah, and I know my brain isn't gonna be fully formed until I'm 25, but I liked getting high. Anyway, but so that's the thing is like everyone remembers their pediatrician.
Yeah.
That is such a formative position in your
Mhm.
life.
Those years of your life are
Yeah.
very important. That's impressive.
Yeah, it's literally the fact that you just haven't lived enough to remember anybody else. Like your pediatrician is such a big part of your life from an early age that it's so memorable, but also what that person does for you.
And I'll say those parents. I mean, they're looking for someone who's so reliable.
Yeah.
Someone
Yeah.
they can
Because you're trusting
connect
your
with.
child's life.
Exactly.
Yeah, you were literally trusting your child's
so then
life.
this leads me to a question. I'm assuming that you're planning on having children.
Oh yeah. I hope so one day.
So when that time comes around, how will you go about choosing a pediatrician, or are you gonna take the responsibility yourself?
Yeah.
And be like, I'm gonna be
I-
my own child's pediatrician.
I feel like I'm either gonna go to one of two extremes, and I shadowed a pediatrician who was a family friend in Virginia over the summer, and he said he can't treat his own children or his own child for this reason, because he goes to one of two extremes. He either is too laid back because he
Yeah.
doesn't want to overreact, or he overreacts. So
Yeah.
me personally, I would have to find somebody else, maybe a friend from medical school or something. Like, hey, is anybody else a pediatrician?
So
who went into pediatric residency? Find them.
I have like two ways I want to go with this.
Okay.
And you can either choose how you want to go. One would be continuing down the path of like family and you being a pediatrician. The other one would be talking about medical school, which one would you like?
Ooh, that's a tough one. Well, medical school does come first in that timeline.
All right,
so
then let's go down medical school.
Does make
Where
me a little
where
nervous.
have you applied?
Well, I'm working on my secondaries right now, which is a process. Especially, I mean, it's just tons of essays for different schools.
What
and
does that mean, secondary?
So once your primary application is through the AMCAS, or American Medical College Application Service, and they basically, it's like the Common App for medical schools, and then you turn that into all your schools. You pay for each individual one, and then you wait to hear back. And most of the time, they send you a secondary, which is just that school and like specific essays that they want you to fill out. So I'm working through those, kind of a process.
Yeah.
It's just, and it costs money, which is kind of annoying. But I've applied so far. I've finished applying to Ohio State, Wright State, and University of North Carolina.
Okay. And you have an interview with Wright State,
Yes.
as you mentioned to me earlier. So
So
congratulations on that.
Yes,
There's
thank
lots of
you.
congratulations going on.
Yeah, a lot.
Starting to make some progress in life. It only took me until my senior year to start seeing some results. But no, that's
So,
it's work.
you're 22 years old. You're engaged. Your path looks relatively set. Like
Yeah.
where your life is gonna end up. So, how are you able to come to that conclusion at 22? Because I could tell you, like, I know a lot of 22-year-olds that don't know what the fuck they're doing with their lives.
Yeah.
They're
Also-
lost.
Yeah.
Even like I have no idea what's going on in my life.
Oh, yeah,
I have
that's
no
fine.
idea what's going on tomorrow, much less like a week, a month, a
Yeah,
year,
yeah.
5 years, and you have like this concrete plan of like
Yeah.
what you want to be.
Oh yeah. And the thing is, I have these plans, and this is like what I would love the most. But at the same time, I'm still open to the fact that things could change. Things might change, and I
You
have
go
to
with
be
the
okay with that.
flow.
Yes, go with the flow. Like, have your dreams, have your goals, have your plans set, but be open to those changing.
Yeah.
Because things happen all the time. And this is just something I got from my mom, and she's like, God has a plan for you. She's very religious. My mom is Filipino, so
Okay.
very, very Catholic.
Yeah.
But she always tells me, she's like, you just need to be patient. Like, things happen for a reason. For some reason medical school doesn't work out, it's okay. You can try again. You can get your master's. You can do whatever you want. It's your life. You control that. So go for what you want, but have other backup plans. Be passionate about multiple things. Don't put all your eggs in one basket.
Did another just quick follow up. Did your mother trust you a lot when you were younger? Did she say, okay, I'm gonna let you make this decision?
Oh boy.
Did you have a lot of independence, or was it a lot of?
It was oh boy, let's see. It was probably kind of half and half. She let me be independent. She would let me go hang out with friends. It went a lot of sleepovers. She was a little. It wasn't as laid back about sleepovers. They could come and sleep over here, at our house, but not really me going over there because she wanted to keep an eye on things. But in general, I'd say she did a pretty good job of keeping it half and half. She would trust me with a lot of things. Going back to school, she would trust me to tell her about things. She wouldn't be prying all the time. She's a good mom. Yeah.
So how much do you think your parents' careers influenced you in your own choice in career? Because you mentioned your dad has a degree in sculpture.
Oh yeah.
And how that influenced the creativity that you see connected with science.
Yeah.
So how much did just what they did daily influence you deciding you wanted to become a doctor?
Well, honestly, it's the stories mostly. My parents would come home with stories about their days, what they did, and kind of what their day was like. In nursing, my dad has so many stories. Pharmacy and physical therapy, mom had so many stories, and those really influenced me. It was wow, they actually got to make these differences in someone's life. Wow, look at how they were able to solve that problem using the scientific knowledge that they have. They know all these things about health and medicine and all the answers. I want those answers. I wanna be
Any
like that.
stories that you
Oh
could share?
jeez. Well, there is something really interesting. My mom did care for. There's a local pizza place, Marion's Pizza up in Dayton. My mom took care of Marion, the guy that owns the pizza place. Yeah, it was really cool. He has a bunch of chains. So I
That's
took
taking
him.
care of Papa John.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, it was crazy. It was really intense, and I found out years later, and I was just like, "Mom, really? You got to meet this guy?" But yeah, it was epic. Marion's
wait,
is the big thing.
Do you have free pizza now?
No.
Oh.
But we had a bunch of
Oh,
coupons at the time, you know, we had lots of coupons.
Yeah, but
Must have been a good couple months.
Oh, yeah.
yeah.
It was fun while it lasted.
Yeah.
But that's really cool, you know, it's a bonus in healthcare. You take care of someone cool and they like you. Get some free stuff. No, I'm just kidding. That's not why I'm going to do it.
No, that's the only reason.
But it's, you know, it's a good perk.
Okay.
Yeah, definitely.
So now I want to dig into that is your fiance. So because you're going to medical school, which is like a super stressful, like
Oh, yeah.
anxiety-ridden time. What is your fiance studying? Because you said he's at Ohio State.
Ohio University.
Ohio University.
Yeah. So he's doing microbiology over at OU. He's hoping to go to grad school and everything, and so we're trying to coordinate it so we go to the same school finally, you know.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's just it's hard to coordinate, you know, because he might like a school and I might not. But
Yeah.
I think we found a pretty good batch of schools that we both like. But he's really into what he does. He's been doing research for a few years now. I mean, ever since freshman year is when he started his research, and he's won awards for it. He's doing all sorts of stuff. He's been writing papers. It's really intense. He's really good at what he does.
You should have brought him with you.
I know.
Sounds like a great guy.
He's really fun.
Kevin was like,
Well, no, because I mean, I
Actually-
think that I want this to be on
I
Kyra in
understand
her
that.
future
I
experience.
understand that.
So, how? I don't really know where I want to go with this one. I guess like he's going to grad school, not medical school. Yes.
Yes.
So he has like more research-oriented
Oh, yeah.
ambitions.
Oh, yeah.
So, you guys seem like you are going to be like, you know, super intrigued by the work you're doing, and it's going to be a lot heavier
Oh, yeah.
than this. How do you think that's going to affect your future, and like with you guys getting engaged now before this comes in?
Yeah. Well, I think it's going to be well, I'm really excited for it, first of all.
Wait, I have one more thing.
Yeah.
So you guys started dating in high school, yeah?
Oh, yeah.
Okay, so
Like senior year.
this
end of
is
year.
yeah, so this is like going off to college, like 2.0, but
Yeah.
it might be a lot more helpful if you guys are at the same spot.
Mhm.
But still, do you think that this will be another thing affecting the way you guys have been going, or do you think like you've been doing this long enough that you're
Oh,
strengthened
yeah, I
up
see. Is
enough,
it going to change things a
especially
little bit? Yeah.
especially with the marriage aspect
Yes.
coming in?
Well, I think, like, even though we're in long distance, we communicate all the time. And so, like, we're used to practically, like, hanging around each other, you know, pretty
Mhm.
frequently. You know, I try to call him every night, you know, right, like, before bed, like, hey, how was your day? And at least catch up. But,
That's adorable.
oh, thank you. Yeah, I mean, we've been going like that for a few years. It's really nice to have someone at the end of the day that you can come to and tell just everything to. I mean, besides being engaged to him, I mean, he's my best friend. So I know that's so cliche, but really, like, in high school, he was my best friend. Like, we just hung out. And
Did you do science
great.
Olympiad as well?
no, he didn't. And I tried
What
to
a
get him to. I wanted him to, but he didn't. But yeah, it was, I mean, going to a place, like if we finally end up at the same school, being in the same city again, if anything, I think, even though it will change things about the way we communicate, because we'll actually see each other every day, I think I prefer that, because he's kind of the reason I'm glued to my phone all the time, and now I don't have to be glued to my
Aw.
phone when I'm like when I'm there. So, you you know, I think it'll
That's
feel
the
better.
cutest thing I've ever heard.
Yeah, I know, right?
He's the
So-
reason why I'm glued to my phone.
That's beautiful. Oh,
Shit.
so about marriage, did you guys talk about this before? Was this something you guys had been talking
Oh,
about,
yeah.
or was it like? So did he have like a fantastic proposal way, or was it more? Yeah, engagement story.
Oh,
tell
engagement
us the story.
Oh yeah, engagement story. So really, we had talked about it beforehand. I think that was important because if we had just thrown it into the works without either of us thinking
Yeah.
about it, I mean, with med school, grad school, etc. coming up, you know, that's impossible. How do you plan that if that's just a surprise, you know?
Yeah.
But we talked about it.
YOLO.
We were discussing, you know, and really, it kind of worked out that we were on vacation with my parents and my grandparents in upstate New York. He got to meet my grandparents for the first time, and the next day they had this little cabin. It's in the woods in the mountains, Catskill Mountains. It's very beautiful, very isolated and quiet. And I mean, so quiet. You get up there, the only thing you hear is wind in the trees. It's beautiful.
Sounds like I need to go there.
Oh
for a
yes,
little bit.
yes. It's very very relaxing.
Expand the mind.
Oh yeah, but it's also nice because there's no Wi-Fi or cell service or cable, so you know, and
Oh.
you just get to basically you and your thoughts and your family and
Yeah.
great food. Nana's food is prime. It's amazing. Definitely gained weight on that trip. But we were just relaxing one day. We had just gotten home from having lunch at the Otasaga Resort.
And he looked at you and said, "Baby."
yes. And then he was
Wait,
like,
he
well, yeah, he said, "Kay, do you want to go for a walk?" And I was like, okay, sure. Like, let me just finish. I was writing in my journal, and I was like, just let me finish up. Like, it's the end of the day. Let me just, finish writing, and then we'll go. And then we went out, and it was really cold and chilly. I had my little sweater. I was a mess because we had been out all day. And we were walking along this little dirt road, and we came to this really beautiful view, and there were just these rolling mountains in the distance, and it was getting very romantic. And that's where he popped the question, and was down on one knee and everything.
When he asked you to go on the walk, did you assume?
No.
Did you expect it?
No, I wasn't
Really?
expecting that. I started to kind of think something was up when he started to, get more romantic, and I was just like, oh boy, what's happening? It's like, this could be something, or it could just be like the mountains, the mountain air talking. I don't know.
Interesting. See, personally, I'm not a fan of engagement or marriage. I think marriage is just a harder way to break up.
That's true. It is true.
I 100% agree.
But my views on it are like, yeah, you should never go into anything without discussing it with your
Yes.
partner
Mhm.
before a lot.
Yeah,
Um,
of course.
I'm pretty sure that if I ever were to get married and if I ever were to ask the question, I would just like roll over and be like, yo, we've talked about this, let's get married. And then
Yeah.
just try to
But
knock it out
this-
there.
That
is my
itself
thing.
can be romantic.
This is
Yes.
the thing. I told my sister this. I told her, I said, I want to pop the question to my possible wife when she's just gotten out of bed, crust in the eyes, breath stank
She
as
has
fuck,
to have crusty eyes.
breath stank as fuck. Because for me, that's like the purest definition of like I love you. Like this is probably the worst that you will look all day,
Yeah.
and I'm gonna ask you to marry me,
Oh.
and you're not looking your best. So
I
It's
love
for me,
that. I
It's
love
loving
that.
the person
Yeah,
for the
Marilyn
person
Monroe.
as opposed to.
I was about to say
the way they
Marilyn
present.
Manson.
Oh.
That's not the right-
No, Marilyn
That's not the
Manson.
right person.
No.
It's not the right person.
But yeah, I think that's beautiful. I mean, because that's what it's all about, Oh, goodness.
Yeah,
these
Um,
chairs are squeaky a little bit.
Squeaky chair. But yeah, it's what it's all about. I'm just loving that person for everything that they are, even at their best and their worst.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Damn
it!
That's awesome.
And the thing is, you say it in the perfect position when nobody else is talking, and it's just that's
Gets
awesome.
quiet.
Oh, Kevin.
So now jumping back to your scientific ventures,
Oh, boy.
you're a pharmacy technician now. Yeah?
Oh yeah. Mm-hmm.
So what does that mean? How did you? I have no idea. Do you just
Well-
work in a pharmacy? Like, will I go into Target and be like, "Yo, here's my
Hey,
prescription,"
Kyra,
and then
how
you
you
fill it? Or-
Essentially, yeah, it's kind of like that. So I work at a Kroger pharmacy up in Dayton. I started my job this summer, and I got my certification and everything, which was hard to do that at the same time as the MCAT, but 2 standardized tests preparing for it at the same time and finals and everything. That was a messy time. But once it was all over,
Well,
like
you
I
got
really
through
wanted
it,
to.
so-
Yeah, I got
Yeah.
eventually
That's pretty
did
crazy.
it. But the job itself, I really do like it. I mean, we are in the pharmacy. We work with the pharmacist and everything, and we can receive the prescriptions, run it through data, and then the pharmacist has to verify it a couple steps along the way, and eventually, like we can fill it. I've filled prescriptions, like physically counted. It's pretty cool. Yeah. But you get to do all that, and then you get to actually have the customer check out and give them their prescriptions and everything once it's been verified. So it's a pretty involved process. There's a lot more to it than I originally thought. Going into it, I was like, okay, I can just jump into this job. Like it's easy. Just count pills, like whatever.
Yeah.
But there's a ton of stuff that you have to know along the way to make sure everything is right, even before the pharmacist.
And I'm
gets
assuming that's why you have to go through school and then get certified. and all
Yeah.
that.
Oh yeah.
So what is the kind of stuff that you need to know? Because like for most people, they just see their pharmacist and
Yeah,
they're like, yeah, you just
here's the thing,
sign this form
pick
and
it up
then
2
you
hours,
just
yeah.
they just put the pills in the bottle.
Yeah.
So what kind of stuff do you have to do or know in order to do it?
Well, I'd say the most important stuff. I mean, being aware of like coverage for prescriptions, and this gets a
Like
little more
insurance?
insurance.
Or-
Yeah,
okay.
insurance coverage. That was the hardest thing for me to learn because I absolutely hate learning about anything that has to do with money. Like I just it makes me cringe. I don't like it. I don't like talking about money.
It's
But,
okay. I hate capitalism as well.
There you go. But it was hard because I had to actually learn about.
Yeah, fuck
all
America.
that. Oh yeah. But it's just a lot of information to process at the same time, like making sure that this person can afford it, and like that we have it in stock, and like if we don't have it in stock, where do we get it, who to go to first, where is it cheapest, can we transfer it, do they want us to transfer it, like, and if there's an insurance problem, we actually have to call the company and wait on the line. Yes, we have to actually go through the whole process and just sit there and be like, whenever they answer the phone, whenever this like dinky music stops playing for the waiting music, then I need to get some answers. But it takes a lot of time.
Do you do yoga?
I do, yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
because I'm just like, this seems like a lot of stress.
Yeah,
like
it
a
is
lot of
stress.
things.
Yeah. Well, there are a lot of
in
other
your
things
life.
too. I like to do for stress. I mean, yoga was one of them. I bullet journal a lot. Bullet journaling's been really calming. I crochet.
Nice.
I love crocheting.
That seems very care oriented, like way more care oriented than I thought like pharmacy could be,
Yes.
because you mentioned like making sure that the person can afford this.
Yeah.
Like that's super interesting, because every time I see my pharmacist, I'm like, oh, you fucking asshole, you take $45 from me every time I
Yeah,
try
yeah.
to get this shit.
You always have to ask. I mean, like, I always ask whenever I'm checking them out at the counter. I'm like, are you aware of the price on your prescription? Or when they give me a prescription, I can run it through a price check and be like, hey, are you aware that your medication costs like hundreds of dollars? Like, is that okay with you? And then if they say no, then they're at least aware.
Has anybody ever said no?
I can't think of a time. Well, one person, I don't know if they didn't necessarily say no, but they wanted to transfer their prescription to another pharmacy because they thought it would be cheaper. But it's a very, very expensive medication. Like, she's not gonna get I doubt she found a discount on it, which is unfortunate. But
That's
some
terrible.
medications are just, I mean, they're like $1,000 for a little bottle. Like, those are rough. Those are hard to look someone in the eyes and be like, this prescription is $954.
What are your opinions on those high prices? Do you feel that they are justified, or they should be lower?
That's complicated. Because at the same time, you want to, pay for the product
Mhm.
and its actual value, because these prescriptions go through so much testing and so much research to get to where they are. But at the same time, the ultimate purpose is to care for someone.
Yeah.
That's what that medication is for. It's for someone's healthcare. You want to make sure that they can afford it. So I'm on board with providing it at a better price, provided that someone else can kind of what's the word I'm looking for? Well, they can kind of help with the cost. So like kind of what insurance does, but insurance companies are very corrupt. So we have a bit of an issue with that.
Alex, I'm really glad that you were the one to transition this to talking about healthcare and like actual stuff, because I don't want people to just think I'm like this super angry political fuck capitalism kind of guy.
But you aren't.
If I am.
Yeah.
That's totally cool.
Yeah. So, are you a proponent for single payer healthcare then? Like, do you think that that's a solution
What?
or
What
what?
is that?
Single payer healthcare. It's like what it is in the UK. It's socialized healthcare where people pay their taxes and the government provides it. So it's essentially like you go into the doctor and you don't have to pay any money. It's free healthcare, except your taxes go up, so you're
Yeah.
paying more, so you're bringing less home. But then if you do get injured, you're not fucked.
Yeah.
You're
not
good to
totally
go.
screwed. Yeah. It's pretty complicated. Ultimately, I really just out of a healthcare system, I'm cool with letting the government run it. I'm cool with that. That's fine to me. I don't see any issues. And I mean, everyone's like, but the government is so it doesn't have to be. Just but I would be a proponent of having a single payer system, as long as all of your healthcare specialists do get properly compensated, and that still your drug companies are also properly compensated somehow, which gets into some money issues. But I mean, if you're paying your taxes and you're paying them properly and everybody's participating in the system, I wouldn't see why it wouldn't work, in its purest form. Because I mean, people should at least have access to getting care when they need it. I don't think it's fair if someone's like, well, I got horribly injured, I can't afford it, so I guess I'm just gonna be out of work for the rest of my life. Like that's not fair. I mean, it's not necessarily your fault that you got injured. What if something just terrible happened to you? What if you just happened to contract some terrible disease, or you just found out that you have a very rare genetic disorder that at the onset is later in life? Like,
and I have a friend who broke her foot just walking.
Yeah.
She was just walking to her car and she like stepped weird, and I guess she thought she twisted her ankle. Turns out her foot broke.
Yeah, it
Like,
happens a lot.
yeah.
Yeah, it happens. Yeah, and you want to have access to proper care for that. It wouldn't be. I mean, if you can't afford it, I mean, you should be able to access some help for that.
Yeah.
That's fucked up.
I'm a big proponent for it because I believe it's community-oriented healthcare. It's stuff where it's like
It's socialism.
I mean, essentially, like you can make that stretch, but yeah.
I mean,
But it's a lot more based upon helping your neighbor, because like if your neighbor's like, hey, can you like mow my lawn? I'm going away this weekend. You're like, yeah, sure.
Can you mow my lawn?
But when it gets down to more like serious stuff, like, hey, I'm going to lose my house because I got in an accident and I can't afford the stuff.
Yeah.
Like most people, are like, oh man, I'm sorry, you're screwed.
Yeah.
Like that's
Bye.
your own
Who
fault.
says that they'll mow somebody else's lawn?
Oh, my neighbors.
I mean, my
you know?
neighbors mow my lawn. It's
I've
community.
never-
It's community.
My neighbors have never touched my lawn.
It's community. It's like helping the people next to you, helping the people because you care about them.
Yeah.
Because they're people.
And except it's when it comes to healthcare, it's a lot more grand than just the
those
people in your
insurance
neighborhood.
companies,
Yeah.
It's tricky with the insurance companies because they want to make a profit off of your need for healthcare, and that's where it makes me cringe a little bit because I'm like, you shouldn't be profiting off of someone's like
Off of
very
people dying.
yeah. I'm like that's
living.
that's a little sleazy. I don't know.
Yeah, but like business isn't based off of morals.
Yeah,
That's the problem.
that is a huge problem. But that's capitalism.
Yeah.
It's the
Yeah.
focus on the money.
That's the system.
Which is
the
why
system.
Trump wasn't doing anything wrong when he said that like he was worried about the economic benefit that would come from helping Puerto Rico. Like speaking from a capitalist perspective, he's doing a fucking phenomenal job. But everybody was upset because they're like, "Wow, you're not human." Well, no, he's not trying to be.
Yeah, he doesn't have to
he's
be
not
human.
trying
He has
to
to
be
be the
business.
president.
He's
Yeah.
doing something
Which-
that benefits our capitalist-focused society.
Yep.
He's doing what he said
Yeah.
he would. And that's
So-
he's reliable.
Yeah. In that way, congratulations, President Trump. You're a capitalist. But
You
the rest of the world
are
hates
a
you
capitalist.
because you're a capitalist.
Yeah.
It's messed up
That's
how
the pros and
capitalism
cons.
interferes with humanitarian efforts.
Yeah.
Well, normally money and morals don't go together.
No, they don't know.
It's a bit of a terrible gray area. But,
Well, that's because once somebody has a little money, the tendency is to want more money
Yep.
and then figure out ways to get it. And sometimes
there's a lot of greed issues.
you may have to fuck some people over
Yeah.
or fuck some people. Shit, you might gotta be.
Prostitution.
Exactly. You know they say it's the oldest form of oldest form of work,
Oldest profession.
oldest profession. Yeah.
I actually would believe that. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean,
Wow.
no, you think about it.
It's been around
Like
for a
if
really
if
long
you
time.
have nothing, you have your body, and you sell that. That's
Yeah,
the last
but-
thing. That's the one thing you have left.
I feel like there's something. I read something else that was like, yeah, this is actually older.
But like
But I forget what it was.
boulder moving.
No, I mean,
Mason, stonework.
I forget. I want to say it
Agriculture?
was like storytelling.
Storytelling.
Yes, just because of
Why
oral
is it a
tradition.
job though?
Because of oral tradition, and now it's moved into like authors and poetry.
But was there a certain payment? Because what?
Yeah,
I guess you could even argue that engineering has been around for the longest time. It's everything that they do.
No, before engineers there was sex. There was always sex.
It's true.
but there were also.
Animals.
No, actually, I guess they would have developed at the same time. Though I guess prostitution would involve payment, but sex.
What would be the
Well,
exchange?
just
I'll
normal
have to do
sex.
this chicken for your dinner.
Normal
You-
like consenting sex between like just two randos doesn't have to have money involved.
Yeah, I know. That's what I'm saying. Is like because storytelling involves oral tradition. Now it's delegated to authors and priests. We don't have that in our society because
Yeah.
we are able to like write stuff
Yeah.
down.
Mm-hmm.
But like in courts, there used to be bards. There used to be jesters and people that would tell these epic stories and pass them down. And since the origin of time, people have been like, I want to be remembered by my descendants, and so they've had oral tradition.
Mm-hmm.
which that's my argument against prostitution being the oldest one. But I'm also a writer, so I feel like I have a bias.
But I also feel like you're saying oral tradition, but that's not necessarily a job.
That's
more like just like a responsibility.
But it was a job.
But then what is the person that is
Were they paid?
Were they paid for their services?
In the medieval times, you would have bards. Like, if you look back, bards and storytellers would be paid for their work.
Really?
Yeah.
Cite the source.
College.
Touche.
You know, the
Touche.
Odyssey. Yeah.
No, but you can't just say Homer and then that's the answer. Homer.
Well, no, but I mean, yeah. All right.
I don't even know.
Do you have any
I don't
other
even know
questions?
What
where we've gone.
direction were we going?
Where have we gone?
I don't know.